Intro to Psychology, Module 3, August 27th, 2018. In looking at the measure of my gender through the BIM sex role inventory questionnaire, I am apparently just barely androgynous, with a femininity rating of 4.15 and a masculinity rating at 6.0. From what I understand of the measure of this test, it is determining the measure of your gender as it pertains to your personality and how you interact with others. In this, I feel that for me, it is a very accurate descriptor for myself personally. Growing up and starting martial arts from a very young age, it was drilled into me that I needed to be balanced in all aspects of life. Even the fact that I have been doing martial arts for over 20 years now has been balanced out. It is commonly thought that you would think that having a martial focus for the majority of your life would make you aggressive, warlike, or even prone to use violence before thinking through and using logic to solve your issues. While in fact, the martial arts focuses more on philosophy and the idea of confidence in your day-to-day life, which in turn leads to solving conflicts with acceptance and in generally non-violent methods. This is brought even more into line with how each move in martial arts has its own philosophic tradition behind it that, when understood, helps you further yourself. In going back to the test, while this balance, in my opinion, is a good thing, it is not anywhere near a complete one-to-one balance. According to this survey, I did in fact rate higher in the masculinity rating. This as well makes sense that, as a male of the species, that while more balanced than many, I am still more primarily masculine within that balance. When looking at gender, not only can it, but it should be measured as one of two variables. There are differences within the male and female body. Men and women have different body structures that are designed for different things. Health-wise, there is a greater importance on using these differences to treat individuals in a way that is specific to the makeup of the person being examined. As I have previously stated, I am studying Chinese medicine, and within Chinese medicine, for example, there are specific treatments that are only designed for men and some that are only designed for women. There are also pressure points that, when undergoing an acupuncture treatment, can be at certain times dangerous to use on women during certain periods in their life. All of these play a part in the measure of the health as far as measuring gender. While the BIM sex role inventory measures traditional stereotypes of male and female characteristics, there is more involved in gender. The first is physical characteristics. As previously stated, there is a certain body type that is associated with men and women, and this is not the ideal body type that you see. This is where we get into the physiology of men and women. While they may be built differently, that is not a bad thing as many people seem to think. Even writing this section becomes a landmine, as it is such a political hot topic when it should not be. I choose to look at this from the medical point of view, and where the male of the species is weak, the female is strong. Where would society be without a force that sets boundaries? Where would that same society be without compassion or the strength that comes from empathy? We need both sides and both genders working together in harmony, with one supplementing the strength of the weakness the other has, in order for the world to become better. Continuing on and looking at the question of athletes and the question of their gender identity, for me this is very simple, although politically incorrect. It should be based on what your physical body is. For example, just recently in our state, we had a male who identified as a female high school student dominate the female wrestling circuit for high school wrestling. Now, the way they were able to do this was not because they were more skilled, but because the male body type is much larger and built in such a way that it gives strength over the female body in that type of competition. For the example used in the biointeractive gender test activity, we saw that it was correct for the athlete in that to be placed in the women's section in the competition, even though she registered in the test as having both female parts, but having the male Y chromosome. In this case, due to the introduction of hormones while she was in the womb, she may have been set on the path to be a male, but she did not receive the hormones that she needed, and as such, her male parts, that while they are able to be seen through an ultrasound, her body was developed as a female body. This qualifies her to compete with the female athletes. The biggest factor in these competitions is fairness. In Olympic events, for example, you never see an average Joe out there competing with the athletes, as they would be massively outclassed by the other athletes. For a good and healthy competition, it is not just about winning, it is about competing with those who provide a challenge, and those who provide a challenge for you in order to improve your own strength. At the end of the day, the athlete is not competing against others. They are competing against themselves in order to improve themselves. If they do not have to push themselves to win, they are failing themselves no matter how many times they are victorious. In looking back at the questions that we have covered in this lesson over gender identity in society and that of gender identity in sports, it is important to realize that to be healthy and of sound mind, you must have aspects of both genders within yourselves. As in Chinese medicine, you cannot have the male without the female. You cannot be a manly man who's the equivalent of a Neanderthal just because you are a man and a man is what you are. At the same time, being a female does not mean that you are dainty and helpless. Many of the women I know are more capable with dealing with problems that come their way than many of those whom I know that are guys. A large part of that is the influx of teaching women that they can do what men do, and as a result they are more likely to have both characteristics within themselves, a balance of both male and female characteristics that enable them to be more balanced. Whereas for men, it is still a stigma to be kind or to cry or show emotions at this time. While the women have moved forward, the men have gone back, in my opinion. For men to grow, they have to experience emotions. They must experience empathy and concern for others. It is essential that one party becomes like the other party, but without the loss of what makes each party unique. Gender identity is one of my least favorite discussions because I feel that what is needed is for both groups to work together, while many in the world want to see one side propped up as better than the other. It is a shame that what would solve the gender issue is meeting in the middle and appreciating what each side has to offer, rather than hating the other side because of that very reason.